All right, everyone. So thanks again for joining us for our guest speakers this week. We've got the pleasure of having Elaine from Kaizor Innovation joining us with a few of her colleagues. We've had a history having done a project in the past. She was recommended as a speaker this term for our new group of students. I think we have a lot to cover today and a lot to learn from and to possibly connect on in the future. One thing that I do want to start doing as part of acknowledging what we're doing here, both online and in our physical spaces, is a bit of a land acknowledgement, because we are really aware and wanting to recognize the lands in which the CDM operates, and for our greater collaboration and for the benefit of everyone. So I'm not taking up space. I'm going to put it out here that we would like to acknowledge that we're gathered on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Coast Salish peoples, the Squamish, the Tsleil-Waututh, and the Musqueam nations specifically. Always grateful for having meaningful collaborations, and we're looking to do more as we move forward. Again, whether it's in the physical world, the digital world, or otherwise, we're a place where we want to make the most of all of our connections. And with that in mind, I think Elaine's company having the connection, was it Hong Kong? Was it the original office?
No, it was Laura. I was at the Carnegie Mellon with her 20 years ago.
Right. Yeah, the degrees of connection are definitely there. We have the history amongst faculty, I guess, with having, the Laura connection, which is amazing. But also, why don't you lead us in with a little bit about yourself, and also what the Laura connection, obviously we've touched on, and Kaizor Innovation, and then we'll get into anything you've prepared for us today.
Sure, definitely. I also have two other colleagues here. It's Daniel and Crystal, if they can say hi.
Hi, Daniel. Hi, Crystal.
Okay. All right. So I prepared 5 things that maybe some of you might not know graduating into UX industry. I prepared a little, one second. I prepared a little poll here, actually. 1 second. Yeah. Okay, maybe I'll just ask the question. I don't know why the button is gone, but okay, just quick question. How many of you are preparing to look for a job? If you can type yes on the maybe the chat.
I'm pretty sure everyone that's
everybody is
a master's degree. There's a me. Yes.
When are you guys done?
This group will be heading out in September, at least from an academic term perspective, but August is when they're officially available. But you didn't hear that from me. It's
Okay, I see. And how many of you, because I know your program is not just UX designers, there's gaming and other things, VR, like how many of you are looking for UX jobs? Maybe just type a yes.
Not me, but Karen Lee was there.
Okay. Joyce, yep. Carlina.
Oh, there's Joyce, there's Wynn, there's yep.
Okay. Oh, thanks for Joyce for referring us too.
Oh, yes.
I met Joyce at Red Academy. Yeah, we also did a community partner with them. So great. And how many of you are actually looking for an internship in UX? Karen.
That was a capital meet, by the way. That was a very loud meeting. No, there's a me. Okay, and okay.
Awesome. Okay. So, Dennis, what's the percentage of students that are looking for UX versus other?
It's it's a mixed bag. I think what I like to say about our MDM students and program is sort of a one-stop shop. We kind of have everything. So it's a third of the students are maybe technical, computer science, engineering. A third are artist, designer types. A third may have producer, project manager. Desires, skill sets, but it's UX. I mean, the user experience seems to be a common thread amongst some of the various disciplines too, at least being UX curious, we'll say. I don't know, but I got to laugh there. I'll take that. So,
all right, great. Today I'll share with you maybe a few things that maybe you might not know, maybe you do, I don't know, but I'm going to focus especially in user experience because that's my background, okay? Did you guys know that? Actually, I was surprised when I saw this data. You can go to payscale.com, and 90% of the designers in this market is actually mid-level to junior designers. So that means our field is actually super young. Even though it's been around for maybe 20, 30 years, maybe 20 years from me. There are also people before me. Yeah, but you can see, you know, most people are under 5 to 9 years of experience, right? I would say. And I'm like the 1.6% because I've been in the industry for 20 years already. Yeah. So that means a lot of people, like if you look at here, early career, 1 to 4 years, that's you. Or even below that, right? So a majority of the market are looking for junior positions, right? And actually tomorrow night, we're going to have an event, IDXA, Interaction Design Association, Vancouver. We're kickstarting. We're actually resurrecting the association, which has been dormant for 2 years in Vancouver. So because I've been running IXDA Hong Kong, which is the Hong Kong chapter of the global network. That's why, you know, now I've decided to stay here for good. Then we've resurrected this association, and we'll have a topic tomorrow about how to best find a UX job. Slightly different from today, okay? But if you're interested, I'll send you the link afterwards, okay? So you need to know where you are, right? It's like if you're just graduating, you're probably amongst the 90% of people, okay? I can tell you 5 to 9 years is the hotcakes right now. The people who have had a few years experience, they're hotcakes, okay? So who am I? Dennis told you a little bit about myself. I have 20 years of experience in the industry, and this is my resume in one slide. I'm originally from Hong Kong, actually, and I worked in and lived in the US and studied in the US for 12 years in the 90s, both East Coast, West Coast, New York, Silicon Valley, San Francisco. So I went through the first .com boom and bust in the 90s. So after the bust, I went back to Asia. That's 2002. And then I stayed there for 18 years. And now COVID kind of pushed me over here. I actually just came here last year to visit my folks in January. And then COVID exploded. So I just kind of stayed here like for a whole year now. And because of that, I'm like, okay, I might as well just stay here because I think things are really happening in Vancouver. Good news for you guys also, I think, and I'll explain why that I see that. So I'm also very familiar with the Asia market, especially China market. So I know you have a lot of students also from that region, and we have some opportunities there too, if they're interested. Okay, so yeah, so my company, Kaizor, we've been helping a lot of Western tech companies in Asia, especially in China market. So our clients are from like Google, Airbnb, Dropbox, Siemens, Motorola. So B2B, B2C, like web, mobile, like the whole gamut. Yeah, so we help these companies like, you know, Google, when they have new products going into Asia, they need to figure out if it fits the market, right? Like product market fit. So we do user experience strategy, we do user research. Yeah, we also train executives in Asia and also design teams, right? Because it's a new field, so to speak. Like because I've started early in this field, like 20 years ago. So, but a lot of executives are still not catching up, right? To, like, it's only because of digital transformation, like a lot of banks need to change. You know, a lot of apps are coming out, right? With AI, big data, blockchain, a lot of companies have to revamp themselves. That's why our industry is thriving right now. So I've spoken a lot worldwide and also conducted a lot of training before with companies. Yeah, so yeah, Google has been our long-term client. Yeah, so that now that I'm in North America, it's good for us because we're on the same time zone. They're in Mountain View down there. Yeah, Airbnb, we helped them in China a few years ago when they were first entering the Chinese market. Yeah, and also even like Asian companies like Combi, they're Japanese. Yeah, so we're pretty versed in the Asian market. And recently I also wrote a book. You can go to the site, this personal site of mine, elaine-ann.com, about, you know, the China market and how things are different culturally that we actually even need to adapt our methodologies, like our UX methodologies. Yeah, so this is IXDA Hong Kong. It stands for Interaction Design Association, and Vancouver also has one. Actually, globally, there are maybe 200 chapters around the world. So we're all have a huge network, right? Yeah, in Hong Kong, we grew it since 2006 to now we have almost 2,500 members. So now I'd like to, bring that over here as well, and maybe connect the both sides of the world. I think West Coast is pretty unique that it's closer to Asia. So there's a lot of opportunity for both like North America and Asia businesses. Okay, so top 5 points. Number 1, these 5 points are based on because of my experience, also in the UX community, and I hear this a lot from also companies that are trying to hire UX designers or junior designers. So number 1 is UX is actually not one role, which I often find it's a myth, sort of, especially tech startups. They think I just need one UX designer to do everything, including marketing and business cards and t-shirts and, wireframes and like everything, right? So if you look at, what the UX roles are, can you see this? So in large companies like Google, okay, there are people who are just in user research or usability testing, and there are just interaction designers, and there are just visual designers. Of course, it's completely different if you're joining a smaller company. If you're joining a tech startup and they don't have as much resources, you probably would need to be all of that, okay? But I find it's really hard for one person to be all of that because it's actually at least 3 different types of personalities, okay? Usually visual designers have a graphic design training or background to be able to even do that, okay? And you need solid training to be professional, I think. Interaction designer and information architect are logical roles. You need to be very left brain. So it's more psychology, usability, like, it's less about emotion and visual stuff. So those roles can be filled by people who came from computer science, like more logical thinking roles. And in large companies, they just draw charts, right, and flows, right? And especially now with a lot of AI and have you heard of CUI, Conversational UI, right? Like Amazon Alexa, Google Home, right? All those are conversational. There's no visual, right? It's an interaction between you and the machine. It's like, hi Google, or hey Google, like, can you find me what's the weather today, right? That's interaction design also, right? And it's all logic based. Okay, the third type are like user researchers, usability testers. Those are people-oriented roles. Like if you are very shy and like introvert, it's probably hard to do that role because you need to talk to strangers, recruit complete strangers, right? It's more about understanding people and also testing your design with them. So I personally think it's completely 3 separate roles. And so you need to know yourself, like which of these you're more suited to and what's your skill sets. Yeah. And because our field is so new in some ways that I always recommend people who are like, if you're coming from marketing, you probably can do more user research. And if you don't have visual design skills, that you can't just like hop onto that role to do visual design. You need some basic training, right? Okay. And it's sort of like how all these roles fits into a product development process is actually the user experience designer is not one role, right? It's like one bubble where there's user researcher, there's sometimes it's even more specialized into information designer, interaction designer, and this group of people are closer to marketing and business in terms of communication. And then visual design is usually more graphic design background. And then there's another kind of role called UI developer. That role is more people who are coming from like computer science or coding. They do HTML, CSS, right? Yeah. So, and then there's the back end developers, right? Like front end, back end. Yeah. So this is how it all kind of fits together. And there's this UX iceberg. Have you seen this? So most people think, oh, UX is UI. No, UX is not UI, okay? If you say UX is UI, I don't even know why there's this term, UX/UI, because UX to me is like an architect. UI is like interior designer. So it's kind of two different levels. Like both are needed, but we're looking at things at a very different dimension, right? But when most people like who are not in the design field and they see like an app, they only see the surface, right? So they think, oh, that's UI and that's UX, right? But UX happens like over time. And really it's the tip of the iceberg because you really need to do your research when the strategy is there before you have the requirements. And then the structure, the skeleton before you even have the beautiful, visual interface, right? And of course, nowadays, I think our field is also evolving because with AI, we just did a project that's multimodal, meaning while you're talking, there's like AI transcription, and then you need to look at the interface and listen. So it's not just visual anymore. It's voice, visual, interacting at the same time, right? So it's much more complicated. Plus, now we have VR and AR, right? So how do you simulate that, right? In a 2D development environment. Oh, pretty cat. Yeah. So number 2, I personally think UX without user research is not UX. You know where the term UX came from? Nope. User experience, right? So we're from a user-centered methodology. So you have a user-centered methodology and then you don't involve users. It's not user-centered anymore, right? Like if you just like come up with the design by yourself, right? Like never interviewed users, never involved them, never tested your design. It's not UX, okay? So, there's a lot of pretty interfaces, but pretty interfaces are only skin deep. And here is where it comes to what employers are looking for. I mean, there are tons of portfolios like on like Fiverr or whatever, Behance and all that. That's pretty interfaces. But I don't think most employers, like serious employers, especially the large ones, are looking for that surface skill. They're looking for like critical thinking. Can you ask good questions, right? So there's actually a lot of soft skills in this field. So just to give you an example, so we've done a lot of user research in China. We've been to many, many homes, right? So these are actually real people, right? So we've been to hospitals. By the way, this is actually in Wuhan, but this is like 10 years ago in hospitals in Wuhan. So we talked to like nurses, like this is my colleague Nancy in Beijing. So this is a prototype that our client actually carried over all the way from the US to test in the Chinese market, right? And then we follow people around. It's called shadowing. We follow this group, this family, and they're telling us like she has a baby, this lady, and a little girl. She would not go outside by herself. She always need another parent, like the elderly to see the grandpa with the seat, the waist seat, because they find it's very dangerous to just have one adult go out with the kid because the kid could be abducted any second. Yeah. So we actually go follow them and then we look at what they use, right? These are apps that are used in China. And then we come back to do analysis like with the team, right? And of course, before COVID, it was all like physical Post-it notes on the wall. Now it's all mural, all digital now. Yeah. And even like in the past, we will actually take tons of photos and they fill the wall. Yeah, now we're kind of restrained by the digital space, but I'm sure going forward we'll have digital walls, right? It's like Minority Report kind of situation. And then you will do user testing as well. And then we'll have devices where people can see the mobile device and we'll get feedback from them. And that's more usability testing. So that's how I think, without involving users, you're not really doing user experience design. You need to go out and get real users, and getting real users is not getting your friends, okay? It's not getting your family members. It's the real target users suitable for that product. Okay, so I can't design a medical device like asking my friends, right? It has to be the doctors and nurses. So that's sometimes the most difficult part, is how do you find the right users? Okay, all right, oops, number 3, UX is not just about design. And I think as you go into this career path, you find that, because I think designers are usually in a really strange spot. You're not the beginning where you are sales or marketing, right? You're not like more the front end of meeting end customers or bringing in the sales deal. You're also not at the very end where you are the technologist where they implement the design to the very end. You're kind of like this entity that has no arms and legs or head, and you're just like sitting in the middle. That is why I personally think it's so critical for designers to either side with technologists or side with marketing and sales. You need to either be able to convince people why something needs to be done using like data or like, all these evidence that you collect from research, or you need to be able to implement your design and not, like if you come up with a design and the programmers are like, no, that cannot be done, and you don't know anything about coding or manufacturing, they'll be like, then you just have no control, right? Like you can't, and if you can't convince them, you're kind of stuck. So user experience is not just a department. I think it's a company philosophy almost. And in the real world, okay, so this is actually a Google team coming to China. We went for Hot Pot. and in a full-fledged team, you have, software engineers, directors, UX designer, user researchers, product managers. So your whole design, you need to convince all these people, right? So you need to find a way to convince them. So it's not just about you creating the design at all, right? And in a large company where user experience really is the responsibility of all these departments. Of course, different companies have different philosophies. Some companies are very, very tech driven. And if you're not in the right position, you'll find it really hard to convince them. So when you look for a job, you need to find a company that's in line with your philosophy. Yeah, otherwise you won't be able to do what you want to do. For example, even when I was working at Philips Design many years ago, this was like 98 maybe. Yeah, so because Philips Design is a design consulting inside Philips Electronics, right? So there's a lot of people in Philips Electronics that are engineers that don't understand design. So sometimes they just call and say, hey, can you just make some icons for us? Or can you make this t-shirt for us, right? So when they don't understand what designers do, that's where you get stuck, right? So that's why we do training with executives as well, because I find even if junior designers understand like UX and the process, if they're placed in an environment that does not allow that, it's going to be very hard. Like if the company doesn't have a budget for you to do user research, then you'll be like, well, I just need to guess what the user wants, right? And you'll be making up fake personas that doesn't mean anything, right? Okay, so I don't know if have heard of this entity called Luma Institute. they're like the East Coast, US East Coast equivalent of like Stanford Stanford D School training up executives. And I find this diagram really good, where it spells out what kind of skill sets like designers need to have. So it's not just visual skills, right? It's you have to have a first-hand experience with human-centered design. You need to be responsive. That's when a lot of us will be facilitators in a executive meeting, right? We'll be facilitators between the business guys, the marketing guys, the tech guys, the research guys. And you need to be able to tell a good story. You need to be able to articulate your design. And also, I think having visual thinking and facilitation skills is important. You need to think on your feet. And also, the reason why there's also love for teaching is because most likely in an organization, the UX people are the minorities. Because every year, like how many designers graduate from schools, right? Like how big is your class? 40? So 40? Business schools graduate like 200 people per year. Okay, so there are at least 5 times more people than us. So that's why you need to be able to learn how to convince other people who are not in your discipline. Yeah, they think in numbers and spreadsheets and Excels, right? And tech people thinks in terms of code and not like holistic sometimes. Yeah, and you need to be able to be a good listener and facilitate everyone. Okay. Actually, in Hong Kong, I actually even created this diagram to tell startups when do they need which type of designer. So it's like, okay, if how can I stand up from competition? Then you go, okay, you need a UX strategist, right? Or they go, our programmers and designers are fighting all the time. Then you go, okay, actually they're missing UI developers, right? Because sometimes they don't know when they need what, right? And these are all these different skills. I've had a tech startup client. The early days when he first started, he hired a illustration guy to do his company logo. So he found the wrong guy, right? An illustrator is good at illustration, but not at branding. And these tech startups just don't know they don't know there's so many different types of designer. So this is just UX, right? Beyond that, there's also brand designers, graphic designers, web designers, copywriting, illustration, animation, industrial product design. So it's all different, right? They all have different associations, industry associations, right? So sometimes I tell them, it's sort of like, even in in the tech world, like programming, there are like front end, back end, like different programming languages, right? Full stack, it's all different. Okay, number 4. I personally feel the reason why a lot of designers nowadays, they usually go to like a 3 months UX bootcamp, right? Where they are kind of led to believe that they can change industries in 3 months. And then they'll come out and go, why am I not getting a job, right? And then they go to CDM, right? Maybe you guys get a lot of those. I know Joyce did, right? But honestly, in any industry, to master any industry, you need 10,000 hours, right? That's 2 years. If you want to be a cook, you can't just go to a class and learn 3 months and become a Michelin chef, right? It's just impossible. So I think because it has been so commercialized, in terms of telling people, oh, you can change jobs in 3 months, that people have the wrong expectation almost. But the good news is, I think in order to get real world experience, you can get an internship, right? Which I know CDM encourages you to do anyway. And during your course year, you have already 2 client projects, which is much needed. Because you can't, if you're working on a project by yourself, without a real context client and without an interdisciplinary team, that's not real enough for employers to hire you. Yeah. But good news is CDM already does that, right?
I'm going to jump in there to give you a breather and also applaud you for kind of stating exactly what I wanted you to say without paying you. So this is, the reason our program exists, I guess, is to kind of emulate, what industry needs and is, and hearing it from you, it's a validation. Anyway, I wanted to give you a breather and applaud you, and
Sure.
I'll let you get back at it. But thank you.
So when I was running Hong Kong IXDA, what we found a really weird phenomena, right? Because on the one hand, we have all the employers like asking us, "Oh, do you have talent? Do you have talent?" We're not getting the right talent. And then on the other hand, we have so many talents like looking for jobs, and they're like, do you know who are there employees hiring? And then they keep not finding a job, and then we're like, what's going on? Like, there's huge demand and there's huge supply. Is not connecting somehow, right? So, well, number one is because there are tons of junior people, tons and they just switch fields from other fields, right? They were like a programmer before or a marketing person, like just 1 or 2 years experience. There are tons of people like this. Oh, by the way, I just wanted to say something about Vancouver. And the reason why I'm staying here is because I think there's a lot of tech companies from Silicon Valley that have set up here, and they're hiring, right? And I think it's probably because of Trump as well, because of his immigration policy, not letting foreign workers come in as easily. So a lot of these tech companies are set up in Vancouver, right? Like in downtown Vancouver, you have Microsoft, Amazon, right? Maybe Apple, and some of like Hootsuite or Slack are local startups, right? I mean, they're no longer startups; they're pretty huge. And Samsung is right next to you guys, right? Next to CDM, yeah. So a lot of these large tech companies are here, and they're hiring, right? I was surprised to see this. Vancouver is named top city in North America for tech growth jobs, and Vancouver is actually number 1, even higher than San Francisco or Toronto, right? So that's very good news. At least this is 201A and 209. So this
we have grads at every one of those companies except Tile right now, and Shopify is just getting off the ground. But
you have a great alumni network. Yeah, that's really useful, actually. So this was just maybe 2-3 months ago. Apple is hiring, right? Amazon's hiring UX designer. Hootsuite's hiring, but you will find a lot of these are actually mid to senior positions. You'll find that, and I have an explanation for that. I have a theory of why that's happening. I think the reason is because, number one, the industry is still sort of new. So there are many junior designers who just kind of switched industries, right? So when you just switch industry, you don't have real work experience. So I think maybe for the first 2 years, a little tough, because employers are looking to hire you and you can perform immediately. They're not looking to train you, because training is the job of the school, right? And also because of the internet, and also because of globalization, nowadays, like, employers can just go on like TopTool, right? These websites and hire. See, this guy previously worked at Google, right? Like, there are tons of freelancing opportunities. So if it's not the core product, and it's stuff that they need to outsource, they can find people here for $50 per hour, like by the hour. So it's all contract work, right? So because I also have a lot of friends in Silicon Valley, and when I talk to them, I know that a lot of companies, if they're not completely sure that you're the right fit, they don't want to hire you for good yet. So you kind of have to prove yourself. And that's because it takes you know, it takes huge effort for a company to recruit. But nowadays, like people are they change jobs every 3 to 6 months, right? You know, so I think employers are like, huh, like I don't want to be hiring this person and then he's gonna leave in 3 months, right? That's why I think employers tend to hire permanently when they know you're settled down and married, you know, and you're like jumping around in 6 months. So I actually think internship is a great way because internship, is less commitment for the company. They get to know you in 3 months' time. If they really like you, then they can, you know, apply for the visa or, you know, go through the whole process. Like it takes a long time to hire somebody in a large company, right? They need to go through HR and recruiters and blah, blah, blah. Like we've seen even in Hong Kong, some of the junior designers are like, oh, I've waited for 6 months. I don't know if they're hiring me. There's no feedback, like no nothing. They don't tell you if it's a yes or a no, and then you just keep waiting, hanging there, right? So, which brings me to the final point, which is don't look for UX jobs through headhunters. You might be surprised that I say this. Do you know why? Anybody take a guess? Yeah, you might think like it's logical to find a job through headhunters, right? But not in our field and not in any new upcoming fields. Because why? Because headhunters don't understand our field yet. It's still new, right? So some headhunters that I've met, they can't even differentiate between UX and social media, okay, or digital marketing. Like they don't know what the difference is, right? They can't understand the portfolio because they're not people from our industry, right? So what they're really doing is they're taking the job description from, like, let's say Google, this department hiring UX designers. So there's a job description, right? So they're taking it and they're just keyword matching, okay? But because our industry is so new, like somebody could be an engineer like 2 years ago, right? And if you can't understand the portfolio or read between the lines, you don't know how to differentiate what's good or not at all. So instead, I would say join design associations. Like go to design events. It doesn't have to be IXDA. There are tons of associations. Even here, you know, there's like Lady.ux. There is like UXD, UED, like yeah, different ones.
I think actually I was going to jump in there on that one too. So the ladies that UX was the last speaker was our alumni member. Okay. Last week's talk. It was the same night as our guest speaker. But anyway, it was Ivy she's at EA now, I think. But
right.
That's great. That is a great association. There's also the GDCBC, the Graphic Designers Association of Canada. I don't know if the chapters is active anymore, but they host the Creative Mornings meetups, or that's right. Yeah.
Yes, cool. Yes, yeah. By the way, men can join Ladies for UX too. So yeah, and how we found out is okay. So in Hong Kong, what we did was we applied the design thinking and UX process to our own industry. The way we did that was we had a bunch of junior designers, and then we just did a workshop with them, right? And then we asked them, so what did you want to happen, you know, for the community in Hong Kong? And then we all did post-it notes, and then so this pattern came out, right? And then we found that, actually people actually needed mentorship and internship, right? And training. It's training networking, right? That's where the demand is, right? They don't know. Some of them spend a lot of time watching YouTube videos, like taking a course at like Interaction Design Foundation, right? And they just keep learning the knowledge without the practice. But in our industry, you can't, it's your portfolio that speaks, you know, everything, right? You can have a lot of labels and a lot of certificates, but if your portfolio doesn't show that, I'm sorry. Yeah, you can have a PhD, but you won't get a job. So So yeah, so we had these sticky notes, and then we found that, oh, okay, so this is the demand. So what we did, and then the other group was we talked to a lot of the mentors. So I sourced like a bunch of like 15, 20 senior people who has more than 10, 15 years experience. And then we asked them the same questions, like what's missing in the community right now? And this is what they answered. And you can see all of these are soft skills. Nobody ever mentioned junior designers don't know how to do wireframe. Okay. No, nobody mentioned that. These are all soft skills that are unspoken when they even write the job description, right? So it's research skills, thinking skills, facilitation, analytical skills, language, especially in Asia, like in Hong Kong, you need Mandarin, Cantonese, English, social skills, improvisation skills, business skills, lateral thinking, critical thinking, problem definition. So you can see where the gap is, right? Employers are thinking this, and then employees are thinking like UX bootcamp 3 months. I know how to do wireframing and visual nice interfaces. So that's where the gap is. So in Hong Kong, we actually did put together a team of senior mentors, like people from because Hong Kong is a financial city, right? So we have insurance companies like Sun Life, DBS Bank. DBS Bank is Singapore bank, HSBC Bank. We even pulled in educators, right? Like Hong Kong Design Institute. Also, yeah. Ant Financial is a Chinese Alibaba from Alibaba. Yeah. And yeah, Lane Crawford, so we pulled in different senior mentors, and then we have a 3-month intern mentorship program. So mentorship is these senior people would mentor these junior people, like maybe once every 2 weeks for maybe an hour, coffee, something like that. Yeah, and some of them will take interns. Yeah. And I'm looking to do that here too. And maybe Dennis or Tom, maybe we can invite you to be one of the advisors as well, or the mentors to connect industry and education. Yeah. Oops. And also, because we know a lot of these senior people, I actually started a YouTube channel last year because COVID was here and everybody had to be at home. So okay, I'll just interview all my friends, right? So I did. So you can go to YouTube and type in Elaine and my full name. Ann is my last name. And then you can listen to what they're saying, right? I have friends from Google Home and he's actually an engineer. Yeah, he talks about how they actually work. And also Bruce Claxton, he worked at Motorola, head of design for 30 years in the B2B side. And you can understand how he thinks, right? Oops. Yeah, and some more junior people, but he's already worked for 10 years. Victor, he has worked at Bain and Company. Marcus has worked at Continuum in Shanghai and also Fjord at Accenture in Hong Kong. Yeah. So how can we help bridge the gap? So yeah, so right now, so other than maybe joining design associations like IXDA Vancouver, and maybe watching YouTube videos of all these industry practitioners about how they describe how they work and what type of people they're looking for. Right now, I have spin off another company here in Vancouver, which is different from my business in Asia. My business in Asia helps Western tech companies in Asia. This one, we're helping tech startups come to Canada. Yeah. So CXO stands for Chief Experience Officer. Because we find, oops, let me show you. We find a lot of tech startups, they have CEO and CTO. They don't have a UX leg. Most of them don't. And then they can't, they run into usually 2 problems. They don't have the budget to hire somebody with 20 years of experience like myself. Or they hire some fresh grad, and then because they don't understand the UX process, the UX design, the junior UX designer ends up doing very menial work, or you get to do the nice painting lipstick on a pig after they've coded. Yeah, so you're like kind of hands tied at the very, very end because you don't have much say being a junior person. So we are solving this by, so I'm like, I will be just spending maybe 2 hours per week with this tech startup, but then we'll have the intern do a full-time or half-time, like maybe half, 2 weeks per month, working with the tech startup and doing the design actually. So it's a win-win-win for everyone. For them, they can afford us. For us, we get to do exciting new projects because a lot of these tech startups are working in AI, blockchain, right? VR stuff, which you probably not really get to do if you first join a really big company. Yeah, you'll probably be doing production work or something. Yeah, and oops. Yeah, so we're helping tech start, and why am I doing this? It's also because the Canadian government recently has a startup visa program. Did you know Canada has to? The government has a mandate to have 1.2 million immigrants in the next 3 years. Yeah, so because I think Canada, like we're privileged to have lots of nature, but we don't have a lot of people, right? So without immigrants, there'll be an elderly issue, not enough labor to support the society, right? And I think Canada government is also very smart. They want smart people and innovative businesses. So they're no longer accepting people who just have money and can buy houses here, right? They want entrepreneurs to come here to create jobs, right? And I know CDM, has a really great program to kind of lead up to that also. Like you can, I was really surprised, like, oh my God, you can stay in Canada for 3 years after graduation. I mean, there's like unheard of, right? Like in the US.
These points are great because we just had an immigration lawyer speaking last night about Canada's need for more talent and also why our program exists, and they get a postgrad work visa, qualify for the PNP or eventually PR status in Canada. But yeah, thank you. Again, you're reinforcing things. I'm like sitting here just nodding my head, but I had to jump in and go, you're right. Okay.
Yeah. So you can start a business or, join a startup, right? And then get your permanent residence or get your citizenship here, right? So we're helping tech startups do that. And we actually have a program so that they get to product market fit. They validate their business idea with real customers, real users in North America or Canada. So because we'll have the junior team working on it too. So we'll help them build the minimal viable product. I will advise on the UX strategy. I'll help train up the junior team. I'll help be the buffer to train up the tech and business guys to do this properly. Because I've met a lot of tech startups where they will build the product for a year or even 3 years, launch in the market, find out nobody wants to sign up, and they're kind of stuck, and they're already burnt some investors' money, right? And then they never involve users. It was just internal discussion. It was internal, like CEO says this, marketing says this, like let's build it, sort of thing, right? So we can train them at the same time training the junior designers on the soft skills of how do you deal with really tough tech guys or business guys, right? Yeah, and then we can also bring in other expertise. Like I also have a tech partner here. He's CTO background. He's also an angel investor. Another partner here, she's in social media marketing for 20 years. Like all of us have 20 years of experience in our field. So yeah, and I also have trained like many startups in Asia as well. So I know the language, right? Yeah, we call user research, they call customer discovery, okay? We call user testing, they call market validation, right? Like it's a different language, right? You need to be able to speak to them. Yeah. So finally, I just wanted to show you, these are the startups that we're working on right now. And maybe we could have some interns, like, you know, down the road. So some of these startups, we're also raising funding for them. So I have a business partner who's doing that. And we're particularly doing startups that are kind of east meets west kind of startups. So this one is actually teaching, because actually I have this problem in my family. I have 3 nieces who grew up here and they don't want to speak Chinese. And because like going to Chinese school is so painful for them every Friday, it's not fun at all. So we're trying to solve this problem. Yeah, by, you know, using interactive media. Um, and so we also teach the startup, like, you know, how do you raise funding? What do you have to tell investors, right? Like you have to have some targets and when to reach what target. Yeah, so these are the 2 founders, you know, they're like in their early, in late 20s, 30s. Yeah, this is my tech partner, Edward. Okay, and then this other one, actually, Joyce helped work on it when she was at Red Academy. Yeah. So this is another startup. We're helping bridge how Western companies can tap into Asia market remotely, especially now with COVID. So they need to be able to validate their products remotely. Oops. So these are some interfaces that Joyce's team was working on. And they even came up with a name, which I think is great. It's called Contact. Yeah. So these are some of the MVPs. It's not programmed yet. It's just the interaction and the look right now. Yeah, so I have 2 other colleagues I'm bringing over to Canada. And we also have a CTO advisor from Asia. And he has a successful business already in North America. Yeah, and then we're working on another project. We're working on 4 to 5 projects right now with the tech startups. One is like a crypto mining heater that you can just plug in your home, and then it's gonna start mining Ethereum, like crypto money for you. So we're gonna validate this in North America. Yeah. So once in a while we'll have these webinars. Of course, it's targeted to Asia. That's why it's in Chinese. So I have my partners with me. So if some of you are interested, like you have friends or family wanting to come over, or even if you guys want to start a business, we can actually help you with that. Yeah, we also have immigration lawyer partners. So that's probably it. And if you're interested, you can scan this if you're interested in an internship coming up. Yeah, this is my email and my website on the CXO arm. And thank you. I'll go back to
and actually, the nice thing with the QR, you can leave that up for a few moments, but we're also recording this and we will make it available on the YouTube channel after the fact. So, and on your point about interns, right now, most of the students on this call are the ones that are heading out for their internships in the fall. We do have a certain number of MDM students that are on their internship term now. So there may be, depending on the more immediacy, yeah, Dave Fracchia, he's been working with the current interning students, so we might be able to make them aware of some of these opportunities as well.
Yes.
Yeah, so,
yes.
And I think, yeah, I'm just seeing your colleague there, Daniel's just shared the Eventbrite link again for another opportunity, I think, to learn a bit more about getting a job in UX, I believe. Is that the context?
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. So, so this is the event tomorrow night at, oh, Daniel, Crystal, what time is it? Oh, yeah, it's 5 to 7 tomorrow. So this is our first event resurrecting the IXDA Vancouver. So IXDA Vancouver has been around for a while. It's just that in the past 2 years, like nobody has been organizing anything for some reason. So here we have 37 who signed up. We also have some more sign up on Eventbrite, right? Daniel and Crystal? Can you hear?
Yes, we do.
Yeah. How many people do we have signed up now?
We have so far 37 attendee on Meetup, and then 68 people register on Eventbrite.
Wow, that's a lot. Okay.
Yeah, so I might have to open up a lot more slot for that one.
Yes. Oh, by the way, Daniel and Crystal is working on this startup, the RedX startup. Yeah.
Ah.
So yeah, they're working on that. Yeah, both of them interned for me earlier last year, and then eventually I convinced them to start their own company. Yes. Yeah.
Well, that's great. We're very supportive of the entrepreneurial spirit here for sure. Like that's a big part of the master's program for sure.
Right. Right. Yeah, I actually think if designers are more entrepreneurial, they go much further. Yeah. Like Steve Jobs, right?
Yeah. Actually, I'm also going to share, like, because you brought it up, the ladies that UX. I just posted the link to the last session, but for anyone on the call who's interested in going deeper into the UX community, they do host different meetups. And the one that I just posted, Elaine, for your benefit too. So this is Ivy. She's one of our alumni now who's in a great position. So she might be a good mentor, advisor, like one of the people that you might want to connect with.
Sure.
You brought my name and Tom's name up. I'm like, you know what, I can mentor on lots of things. UX is not my area of expertise, but certainly Ivy's.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Great. Yeah. Yeah. We're gonna start building a mentor network here, I think, who understands the Vancouver scene. Yeah, because I hear so many junior designers like asking for jobs, and then they just don't know how, right?
Yeah.
But once there's a mentor following a mentee, they land a job very fast. Like in our Hong Kong network, maybe in a few months, right? Because the mentors talk amongst ourselves, right? We're like, oh, who's good? And then we watch people, right? We see, and plus, actually, IXDA, so Daniel and Crystal, we're all volunteers. We have two other, Joyce is also volunteering if she has time, because I know you guys are busy at your program. But we have a core group of people organizing this now. Any of you interested to help out, you can tell us. Yeah, we're looking to grow the community here, and welcome any feedback. Yeah, also.
That's great. Well, I'm just thinking for the interest of the last remaining minutes, maybe if you stop the screen share, we can see everyone who's on the call and see if there's any questions. I know I have one that I'll lead with. So you talked about user experience needing to test with users. How are you doing that effectively in this era of COVID, global pandemic? What advice do you have teams that are working on projects to actually test with the users?
Super easy. Actually, in North America, it's super easy. Of course, we have to pay something. But you know this website called Respondent.io? We're able to recruit like within a day, like 20 some users. So of course, you need to pay users incentives for them to wanna get involved. It's much easier here than in Asia. In Asia, we have to go through networks and networks of people.
Well, I remember that was the premise of the project, right? Was building trust or something for people to want to.
Yeah.
Right.
So this website is awesome. They show their LinkedIn. You know, you set a few screener questions. They either qualify or they are disqualified, and then you don't have to pay before you see them. So it's only after you interview them that you pay them. And yeah, it's really a great platform.
All right, well, thanks. That was a tip. I led with the question, but I will go back to the full screen and see if anyone else out there has questions before we wrap the show. Ah, there you go. I saw a hand.
Yep. Karen?
Thank you so much for all the advices. And actually, I quit my previous job because, I mean, the culture didn't allow me to do things I really wanted to do. So you mentioned that it's really important to find a company that's in line with their philosophy. So, but it's kind of hard from outside what the culture is like. So how mature that those companies are, it's kind of hard to, but is there any tip to discern if that company is really design mature company or things like that?
Yeah, so the way I advise people to do that is, number one, join IXDA. Once we create a mentor network and a bunch of volunteers, you get to meet these mentors like one-on-one almost. And people talk, okay? People would say, oh, oh, this is a great company to work for, or this is like crap, right? And then, and also join a lot of UX events, right? You know, once you join a lot of UX events, even if it's a webinar, you can ask questions and you can get in touch with the speaker right there, right? And then you can get connected on LinkedIn or email, and then you can ask some questions, right? I think most mentors or senior people, they also need to hire. One thing is, because the UX industry is so demanded, I would say experienced people are so busy, right? They're so busy with a lot of work already, and then they need to hire more people, right? So they also want to be able to identify good talents. And if you show up, you're on, like, if you, for example, if you join like an association, you show up on time, people see that, right? People see how good you are. And then the mentors are going to talk. They'll be like, oh, like, have you worked with that girl? Like, you know, I think she's pretty good, right? But if you drop the ball, people also remember. Okay.
Which is a memorable thing for us to get to the wrap here. But so what I need to do, because we're keeping this to within the hour,
Sure.
I want to say the public thank you incredibly much, especially for the ongoing offers to connect for the future interns and the various ventures you're going to be attached to.
Sure.
Appreciated the QR code and the email. Maybe
there's
we can.
a QR code here.
Okay, right there, exactly. So we.
My YouTube channel, if you wanna.
Perfect. We'll help spread the word about the upcoming event, as well as staying in touch as it heads towards the internship term.
Sure.
Many thanks to you and your team. And with that, I think we're going to wrap here, because a number of us have 7 o'clock ventures. So thank you again so much.
All right. Thanks, Dennis and Tom.
Till next time. Yes, this is yeah, very much appreciated. Thank you all.
Thank you. Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Good night.
Bye.